Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kidlit Social. I'm Laura Backus, publisher of Children's Book Insider. Thank you for being here with me on this July evening. If you are brand new to us and you want to get on our list to find out about all of our social guests as well as other fun things we do, go to writeforkids.org/ultimate-cheat sheet. You'll get on our list and you will get a free ebook from us, which compiles 32 years worth of beginner writing tips for children's books. We've been in business for 32 years. So this is sort of our best beginner advice, and it is yours for free for getting on our list. And I have a very cool announcement about Children's Book Insider. That's our newsletter. That was our sort of flagship product, 32 years old. And we have every month an above the slush pile opportunity where an editor or agent gives us, our people, a special opportunity to submit to them. I have a special form you fill out with a link that's in the newsletter, and you get to either jump over the slush pile or submit to an editor who's normally not accepting submissions. And this month, for the month of July, we have Doubleday Books for Young Readers, Frances Gilbert, editor-in-chief, Doubleday Books for Young Readers. Huge opportunity. And she is taking board books and picture books right now. So if you're not a subscriber, you want to get in on that. There's a bit.ly link down here, bit.ly/join-CBI. Or we have this handy dandy QR code. You can point it at your screen, point your phone at your screen and take a picture right now. And you can be billed month to month. It's $5.49 a month, or you can subscribe for a whole year at once for $49.95, which is a really awesome deal. And if you are an annual subscriber, you also have access to 5 years worth of back issue archives. So again, only subscribers have this opportunity this month to submit to Doubleday. So if you're not a subscriber, and if you are a subscriber, the issue is going out tomorrow morning. I know some of you are like, where is it? We didn't want it to get lost in all of the holiday emails and people being away on vacation, etc. First thing tomorrow, it will be in your inbox. It's an electronic newsletter. It arrives in your inbox every month. So take advantage of that and good luck to you. So now we have Celebrate, my favorite thing about the social. Sapphire Chow was invited to make a presentation to a group of local novice writers about her author journey. At the end of the presentation, she was asked to lead this group of writers, and after some hesitation, she decided to take on the challenge and is now into her 5th presentation on writing Kidlit. And Sapphire, that is awesome. And I know that Sapphire was nervous about this because she was like, who, me? How can I teach other people? But she's spent a long time studying how to write children's books, and she is absolutely able to teach other people. And she has an article in our July issue on imposter syndrome. So which is really interesting. So be sure to check that out. So yay, Sapphire, good for you. Kelly Lima, who is here tonight, writes, I'm booked for an author event for July 9th from 12 to 4 p.m. at the Sugar House Barnes & Noble in Salt Lake City. If anyone would like to come by and bring the kiddos, we will be doing story time, goodie bags, scavenger hunt, collages, coloring, and giveaways. Yay! And she is looking for local picture book authors who have their books on the shelves of Barnes & Noble who might want to be added to the scavenger hunt. So you can email her at writerversejourney@gmail.com to be considered. And I'm assuming you need to be a Salt Lake City area author, but you can email her to find out. Also, she had this great tip about getting your books into the library. First of all, great idea, Kelly. She's asking people if they find her book, Along Came Oliver, in their library, please take a picture and tag it at writerverse-journey, which is a great idea. You should all be doing that on your social media. Get your fans and your followers out there looking for your book at the library. And she talks about this initiative to help small press authors get into libraries. And you can check it out. I looked at it at this link. It's really interesting. bit.ly/author community. So if you are a small press author or a self-published author, I assume, and you want to get into your local library, go check that resource out and see how to go about doing it. It's very helpful. So thank you, Kelly, and congratulations to you. Oh, and she says in the chat box here, Spanish and Portuguese versions of her book will be free on Kindle on July 9th. Wow, really going gangbusters. So congrats to both of you. I want your good news. So email me at mail@writeforkids.org and put celebrate in the subject line, and we will feature your news on a future Kidlit social. And as I always say, no celebration is too small. Matt, you're asking me, can we share our book ideas here? Do you mean in the chat box? And I don't know what you mean by ideas. So I would say no, not at the moment, because it'll turn into sort of a critique group, and I want you all to focus on my guest. But if you are interested in finding an online critique group and you want to put your email or Facebook, say message me on Facebook or whatever in the chat box for people to contact you, that's fine. We've had that happen before on the social. Make sure you have it set to everyone, your email, instead of to hosts and panelists, so everyone can see it. So, but thank you for asking. It's actually a great question. So I have a couple cool links of interest today, and they're both to help you market your books, since we're in the small press self-publishing zone tonight. Amazon Ads Step-by-Step Walkthrough for Beginning Authors by Jane Friedman. I think I misspelled walkthrough. That's my bad. It should be one word. From her blog at janefriedman.com. And there's a direct link to this article, bit.ly/Amazon Ads Walkthrough. Capital A, capital W. And we'll put these links, with the replay, we always do. Great article that kind of helps you figure out what Amazon ads are, how to make one, what kind of books do well with them. Jane Friedman's really good at that kind of thing. So I would definitely check that out. And then Lauren Rinaldi from her blog, has this great post, how to create your best Instagram bio. bit.ly/. Okay, why does it have an I best Instagram bio? I forget that I think, I don't know. I'm sorry about that. Like I said, I have a cold. I will double check that link when I send it out. Try it with the I and without at the beginning. Or just go to her blog, laurenrinaldi.com, and find the blog post. Anyway, she's got some really great advice on how to make the best use of that bio. Every little bit helps promote you as an author. And so you don't want to waste that little opportunity in your bio to give some great information about yes, Kelly, capitalization matters in bit.ly links. So check that out. Blech. Okay. Now for my guest. He's probably afraid to come on at this point. Okay, I am really happy to have Robert Agis, president of Starry Forest Books. Starry Forest Books began in 2016 as a boutique publisher, creating exclusive products for Barnes & Noble. And in 2019, Robert took over and built a team around 5 core values and the vision statement, make something beautiful. So we're going to talk about that. The Starry Forest titles are now distributed worldwide by Ingram, and their books are sold in numerous languages. And their titles range from board books to chapter books, published under both the Starry Forest and the Little Hero imprints. Now, Robert, before becoming president of Starry Forest, Robert started his career as a creator and performer, earning degrees in piano performance and music composition before starring in musicals around the US. He wrote several children's book manuscripts, and in his last role at Sterling, which is now called Union Square and Company, which is the publishing arm of Barnes and Noble. He collaborated with Barnes and Noble to develop new ideas. And I'm just going to give you a quick preview here of some of Starry Forest books. These are a few books that have just come out that they're kind of highlighting right now, and you can see how beautiful they are and what high quality the art is, which I love. Sometimes smaller presses skip on the art because it's expensive, but I love that Starry Forest is not. So Robert, welcome. Thank you for being here.
That's my cue, right?
Yes,
my
that's your
cue.
cue.
I didn't miss it. Oh, thank God. Thank you for welcoming me. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. And
yeah,
you have some really nice resources that you're offering people. I want a recording of this, if I may.
Because, we will send you one.
Yeah. You mentioned several things that I think are going to be really useful to people. Like you've got this ebook. I wish I'd had that.
Thanks. Yes, we record all of the socials. We put them on our blog. You can go back and see 2 years worth of recordings if you want.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, tremendous content there. But yes, you will get a recording, as will everyone who is on our list who might be here tonight. You all get the link tomorrow to the recording. So can you tell us, I want to start off because I love your journey from performer to president of Starry Forest Books. Can you tell us a little bit how you got from one to the other? And do you think that creativity begets creativity? If you're creative in one field, it kind of snowballs into creativity in other fields?
Mm-hmm. Well, those are two very good questions. I think that well, as far as how I kind of got into it and after one, I think I've always loved emotion. Is what I've always been into. When I was a kid, like I really was like attracted to movies that had a lot of sensitivity to them. I saw Dances with Wolves as a little kid. I thought, oh my God, this movie is so intense. This music, all I want to do is write music like John Barry. And so, in high school, I discovered that I could write music. And so I went and wanted to be a composer. I wanted to write film scores. And I wrote volumes of piano music and art songs and whatnot. And that got me into writing musical theater. And so I wrote a couple of musicals and I produced them. And when I was like, oh, I really love being on stage and I wanted to be an actor. And so I started doing acting. And I was like, oh, I can sing too. And so I started doing musical theater. And then I started, oh, I can do voiceover. So I did voiceover for the first ebooks, the children's books that appeared on the Nook. So like if you get ebooks, it's possibly you've heard my voice. So ebooks of children's books. And yeah, I think that to some point, creativity begets creativity. It's kind of like you learn how to cook something. You're like, well, maybe I can do something with something that isn't just eggs. Oh, well, I can bake bread too. I had no idea that my own cookies would be so amazing. So I think that once you get into the kitchen, and also if you give yourself the room to play, I think that there is, for all creators, and I can certainly appreciate this, there is a really strong degree of self-criticism and self-censorship. And I think with that aside, suddenly if you're given tools, you're given crayons, you're given paints, you're given pens, you're given a computer, you're given a piano, suddenly you can create all kinds of stuff because it doesn't matter whether it's good or not. That's not the point. And to that point, like one of our core values, one of our core values is creativity. And for each of the values that I established when I took over the company, we also have a definition. So I'm very clear with my team what that means. And for creativity, the definition is playful, fearless exploration of all possibilities. And it touches also like how we work as a team. I think that one of the lessons, I started in publishing as an intern. And so it was fascinating to me coming in as an adult because I'd already had a career as an actor and a singer and composer. So I was older than some interns. How certain people treated me with complete respect and wanted to know what I had to say. And other people, because of my title, treated me like garbage. And I mean, that's normal. That's human behavior. But it really became clear to me that when I was running something, I wanted everyone, regardless of their age, regardless of anything, to feel that their opinion matters. So to that point, that idea of being able to be generous with one another and share opinions and have them heard. That kind of touches on that fearless exploration. Like when people feel like, no, they're not going to be made fun of for any idea, they're not going to be criticized, they're not going to be put down. That really allows for a very wide spectrum of ideas to come out there. And then you can determine, maybe a children's book about an ant that, has an exploding brain may not be the most effective book, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah. It's a place to start. And then yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't
No,
know.
I'm going to say, so the answer to your question is, I think, yes, creativity begets creativity in the same way that, and this may sound sappy, but I do believe it's true, that love begets love and kindness begets kindness and patience begets patience.
I very much agree with that. I think the challenge in a lot of ways for creative adults, when you're a kid and you're being creative, especially like if you're preschool, kindergarten, and you're given the tools, you're given the crayons and the paints and stuff, there is this unbridled creativity and there's not the judgment of, am I good enough? It's just, look at what I did. They're so proud of it. And then at some point we become very self-conscious and of our creativity, and we judge ourselves. And then when you're an adult, especially with writing, you may pour your heart on the page, but the idea of someone else reading it is terrifying. And of course, that's why you write, to have someone to read it. You need the reader. So how have you been able to work with your authors, for example, to get over that hump and just let the creativity be there without all the self-judgment?
That's a really good question. And I think also, these answers that I give, they're because I've dealt with these challenges myself. It's because I know what it's like to feel stifled creatively. I know what it's like to feel like I'm part of a team where I'm not respected. So it's not as though like, I've got all the answers and I've always done it right. But I would say that, to respond to your question, I think what stands in the way of people expressing, again, these terms kind of sound a little bit high level or whatnot, but like what gets in the way of a person expressing their soul's purpose is that they are needing something from someone else. And that need comes in at least two pivotal places, at least the way like adults, I think, have organized. And one is validation. So a sense of, yes, you are good, valuable, lovable, etc. And two is in terms of financial compensation. And financial compensation often is a symbol of your love, valued, special, all that kind of stuff. It's also just, a sense of being connected to what the market wants, needs, and will bear. But if one can suspend those needs for a moment and say, I don't need anyone to tell me this is beautiful. I don't need anyone to tell me this is great. One, just like if that were true. One. And two, I don't need any money from this. That, and easier said than done sometimes and whatnot. We're all relying on we all need to make money, and everyone needs to feel to be made special, right? But I think that what has held me back in some respects, and the different creative things that I've done, has been, God, I really want the applause, or I really want the praise, or I really want, and it's like if you can suddenly find out why you want that, and ideally mitigate that. Like I was talking to someone the other day, and this person, a totally different situation. He's a consultant at a major consulting firm. He's like as corporate as you get. And he just, he's trying to get to a certain level and make a certain amount of money. And what I told him is that, again, this is the answer to a different question, but I feel like it's a relevant one because this touches on creators' confidence in their work. I said, if you really felt you were loved, like absolutely 100%, it was unquestionable, adored, just as you are, and you can just trust that, does that change your need state for this certain amount of money, for this certain title, for this certain recognition? If you really just said you are adored and perfect. You
Hmm.
are adored and perfect. And just let that calm down any need for praise.
Hmm.
Now, what game do you want to play?
Hmm.
What do you want to write? What do you want to paint? What story do you want to tell? What's funny to you? All those kind of
Yeah.
things. And that's a very different game of how do I please people? How do I please people? How do I make
Hmm.
something people want? How
Hmm.
do I make something people will love and buy?
Yes.
And focusing on how do I make something people will love and buy, and how do I make something that I need to make
Yeah.
because I love it.
Hmm.
Very
Hmm.
different things. And the people that I think get in touch with making something that they love,
Hmm.
that's something ultimately that will be loved because it comes from a really true place.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. You can really tell the children's book writers who write from that place
Yeah.
instead of this is what the market is looking for right now, so I'm going to write that.
Right.
And the ones who write from the place of I need to write this book for me
Yeah.
do have a much more authentic voice. They communicate on a much more emotional and intimate level with the readers. And I think
Yes.
the readers respond to that
Yes.
more so. Yeah.
That brings up two really great points. One is you write the books. Well, there's I could talk about this forever, but you write the books that you want. I publish the books I want. I mean, I'm not doing it in a vacuum. I sure need
Hmm.
people to like buy these books for their kids, but I want that book for
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
In the same way that Steven Spielberg said he makes movies that he wished he could see as an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Hmm.
So like, um, and then there's a couple of resources I wanted to mention at some point in the conversation. So I'll throw out one of them now. So I've written all kinds of things. I've written a whole bunch of poetry. I experimented with screenplays. I experimented with plays and lyrics for musicals, like all kinds of stuff, like anything with words. I'm going to give it a shot, you know.
Hmm.
And a great resource I found is a book called The Playwright's Guidebook. I recommend it to every writer I've ever met. I don't care what they're writing. There's so many wonderful things in there. And
Hmm.
one of the great tools or tips from it, he talks about the fact that like people are afraid of overwriting something. And he says, that's not the problem. The problem is you didn't write enough.
Hmm.
You just exhaust it. You get everything out on the page and make as big a mess as possible. And then you go back and start finding out what's hot. And like
Yeah.
one exercise from a wonderful creative writing program I did at NYU, they actually took you actually write it by hand and then you run your hand over the page and look for the hot spots. Like what's
Huh.
hot? What
Wow.
moves you? And then and like another one you can say, start there. It's like
Hmm.
that's the idea. So
Hmm.
many times you get manuscripts from authors who haven't necessarily written for years and years and years, and they feel like they've got something, but what they've got really is the start of something.
Hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, I found this nugget of gold. I'm like, sure, that's a mountain. That's a mine. Go
Hmm.
mine the mountain.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yep. Yep. And I think sometimes people are afraid to mine the mountain because it is so personal to them, and
yeah,
it's they feel like they're going to be bearing their soul to the world, and that's a scary thing. And I think you have to have a lot of courage as a writer to just say this
you
has to
do.
happen
You
for it to be
absolutely,
good.
and that's true,
Hmm.
and that's true for actors as well. Like
Hmm.
we could have a whole conversation just about actors, but like the actors that I love are naked.
Yeah.
They are completely, and the great actors, in my opinion, and the great writers too. There is a sense of out of control. I
Hmm.
am not in control. I am
Hmm.
doing the work and letting it happen to me. And
Yeah.
I feel like you can see it in when you read something. Rumi has a wonderful poem, and he talks about poetry in the poem. And you have to forgive me. There's two dogs in the other room, and they've got plenty to say.
That's okay.
But Rumi talks about poetry, and he says, "You know good poetry because," and he's comparing it to grapes, because of the juice.
Mm.
Like there's a richness in it. They're wet with live creativity,
Hmm.
and one of the main criticisms I have, that when I look at a manuscript, I feel like this is someone writing from their head. They have got it all figured out, so they're not taking the ride. The
Mhm.
really great writers, the really great actors, the really great musicians have found a way to get into the roller coaster car and are going on the ride. And
Mhm.
because they are in the ride, you're in the ride.
Yeah.
But no one wants to experience a roller coaster from 100 yards away and you talking about it. We want to be in the car,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm. Very true. Very true. That's awesome. So you gave us one of the core values of
Sure.
Starry Forest. Why
Yeah.
don't you go through the others?
What's for the others? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have 5 core values. They are integrity, which we define as doing the right thing. And not
Mhm.
just doing the right thing, but also communicating honestly and making truthful art. So
Mhm.
the style of acting that I came from was very much about truth. Like, that isn't true. It's like, you don't believe it, you don't feel it. Like, I don't want you to pretend anything. It's like, if
Mhm.
it's either you're either feeling it or you're not, and if you're not feeling it, don't pretend. Just do what you need to do on stage without the emotion.
Right.
So that's what we define integrity as. Beauty as open-hearted, open-minded connection with what inspires. So whatever inspires you, that's beauty. Because I reckon different people are going to have different definitions of beauty, but to me, it's going to be whatever it is that inspires you.
Mhm.
Creativity, we talked about. Teamwork isn't the fourth one, and the simple definition of that is just generous collaboration. And
Mhm.
if there's one other thing, well, there's plenty of other things, but like, if there's something else I can share with the group, it's this idea of like, how can I help? How can I help? What can I give? What can I give? So if it's always, how can I help? What can I give? You'll never feel like you're missing anything, or that you're a victim, or that there's lack, because you're always coming from a place of, I got more to give. How can I help? How can I give? And when you go to like I went, we just had our first ALA, which is really big for us. And Valerie Tripp was there, and Valerie Tripp's like a big hero of mine because she wrote all the American Girl books, and I had a little sister and she had all the American Girls. And I was also a music director for American Girl. That's how I met Valerie Tripp. And then Valerie Tripp's like manuscript ended up on my desk years later. It was just a weird thing. But this woman, she's the people come up to have her book, sign their book, and they're crying, and they're giving her like their original American Girl doll books from the 90s, and they're like bringing her like little dolls and stuff. I mean, our books too, fortunately. But she's just got a really generous spirit. And so, in terms of the people that are on the team at Starry Forest, and also the creators that we bring, we interview them all. We interview them like we're interviewing them for a job, because I know I'm going to be working with these people for a year, 2 years more. And I want to make sure that they have a positive vibration to add. It's like, this is a beautiful person. So, like, you could even say that our vision statement isn't just make something beautiful, it's make something beautiful with beautiful people, so that they really are making the world a better place, so that everybody that touches the company in some way, whether it's the actual physical product or at ALA, and they're like going to a signing, they're like, wow, it's like, they're really beautiful.
Mhm.
Like, the books are beautiful, the people are beautiful, the logo's beautiful. What a great place. So that, because there's that line from Maya Angelou, like, people will not remember who you were, they'll remember how you made them feel.
Right.
Right, and I'm misquoting her, I'm sure, but it's that general idea. So everything comes back ultimately to my love of emotion. I've always been in love
Mhm.
with emotion.
Mhm.
Always been in love with great acting and great music and great books and great poetry and great paper. Anything that's just really gives you a strong positive emotional experience.
Mhm. That's wonderful. And a lot of authors who are unpublished, they don't understand what a team effort a book is. And you may be the writer, but you are a small part of that final
Yeah,
book. And to
yeah,
have that collaborative
yeah.
environment in
Right,
you know, right from the start, I think
right.
it probably makes the whole process so much more enjoyable and probably works much more smoothly, I would imagine.
You get a lot more investment.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot more investment when people know that they are valued and heard.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe part of it is that desire to give people those, I mean, needs is a dangerous thing to say. Emotional, we'll just call them emotional needs, like the
Mhm.
emotional needs of validation, respect, appreciation, gentleness. Who was I was listening to? I was listening to the audiobook. I listened to a whole bunch of audiobooks. Now there's a whole, like another 4 hour conversation. But I'm listening to the 7 Habits of highly effective people, Freud,
Mhm.
highly effective people. And he said something so true. I mean, the whole book, but like he said that no matter how tough the person is, there is some sensitive, tender person inside there. It doesn't matter who you are. And I've talked to some really rough people over the years because I've worked in so many different capacities.
Mhm.
But you get older, but the heart remains a child.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
everyone needs someone who's going to be tender with that child, even
Yeah.
when you're trying to meet a deadline or like something work for a market or whatnot. And I think that if people really feel that they are respected, and if I really feel people that are working with us are respectful, it's going to
Mhm.
be a beautiful experience, regardless of how the book performs or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very, very true. Very true. So,
And now we're out of time, and well, I'm glad
oh,
I had so much to say.
I know. No, this has been awesome, and I'm, jetting most of my questions that I was going to
Good.
ask you because
Throw them out and just ask
throw 'em
me.
out.
Tell
I
me what's
love
on
this thread much
Tell me
better.
what's on your, yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
what the first thing that comes to mind you want to know. Like throw
Yes.
everything out.
Well, what I want to know, and as a business person, as a publisher,
Yeah.
do you have the luxury of just publishing from your heart, or do
Mm.
you have to sort of be aware of the market as well? Because obviously you have to make money so you can keep
Yeah.
publishing the books you
Yeah.
love.
You're telling me. That's no joke. Um, that's a really interesting question. I mean, over the years, I've certainly seen both Sterling and many other publishers publish books that are going to sell, but as opposed to like ones that they love, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
I think it's a balance. I think that at the end of the day, if you go with that spirit of generosity, which is an aspiration, I'm not saying I'm living at that all the time, but that idea of how can I help, how can I give, that tunes you into what is going to sell. What do
Mm,
people want? What do people need? What do people need?
mhm, mhm.
It's like okay, well there aren't any books about out there about pride. Boom, you got 100 picture books and a bunch of board books
Right.
about pride and whatnot. Um, I don't think it's an interesting question. Like we saw a book that I thought was very marketable, that I thought was really sappy, and I waited on it. I'm like, I can't buy this thing. Like I know this illustrator, I like the illustrator, like it's so cheesy. And I waited too long because I just couldn't
Mhm.
pull the trigger on it. And then someone else bought it, and at the same time, I got feedback from a retailer that they would buy a lot. I'm like, what are you gonna do? It would have been successful, but I didn't care about it, and I'm not. I mean, perhaps it was a foolish business decision, but at the same time, something that a really fantastic editor told me a while back when I was first starting out is that a book that might be really successful for one publisher, it's not necessarily that it would be successful for somebody else, because if you're not really behind it,
Right.
it's never going to be as good as it can be. Whereas, like, if someone's really in love with it, it's like,
Yes.
here's a really terrible analogy coming from a man who's never been married, but like one person who'd be an amazing partner for someone else might not be an amazing partner for everyone else because not
Mhm.
everyone's going to love them.
Yes. Exactly.
And it's a marriage working on a book.
Mhm.
You're not, this ain't a short-term thing. And ideally you're working with people that you're going to work with again. I worked with Valerie for years at this point.
Mhm.
And I worked
Mhm.
with Teresa Martinez, my favorite illustrator, who has illustrated Greek myths, goddesses, and gardens, which I saw a little image of. That was the one that Valerie signed at ALA. She's worked on a bunch of books with us. She designed our logo.
Mhm.
So you find people that well, not Robert, Martin Scorsese at Robert De Niro's Kennedy Awards speech. He said something brilliant. He said, "The joy of making movies with people, making movies with your friends." It's
Mhm.
like, that's ideally what I'd like it to feel like with all the people that
Mhm.
I'm working with. So I don't think that it'd have to be a pretty damn sellable book for me to say, yeah, let's make it, even though I don't care about
Sure.
poop on toenails, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I read a great quote from one of the big five publishers. I
Yeah,
think it was Penguin Random House. I'm not sure.
yeah,
Asking if sort of about the profit and loss of publishing and the whole logistics of it. And he said, we expect to lose money on over half the books we publish.
that's
But
true.
if we didn't, we would never publish books that we just love.
That's
We
true.
would only publish books that we knew could sell. And in order to keep the whole book universe growing
Um,
and new creativity coming out into the world, you
yeah,
have to assume that you're going to lose some money, but that's
yeah.
okay,
You
because
want
you
me to
want these
respond to
books out
that?
there.
You want me
Yes.
to respond to that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So publishing is a major gamble because
Mm-hmm.
of the constraints on the industry, because to use I forget the economist's name, he's wonderful. To use his term, it's an efficient market. It's an efficient industry, meaning there isn't any space for innovation. Like
Right.
we're already printing in the cheapest possible countries to print it in. Almost everything's printed in Asia. Okay. Shipping is what it is, and it's worse than ever because
Yeah.
of the rising cost of gas, plus the pandemic, plus the fact that the shippers are taking advantage of the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
you're paying crazy amounts to ship a book now. Um, you've got expectations from authors and illustrators. You've got increasing co-op from retailers. So retailers, aside from buying it at a percentage discount, they'll also require an additional payment, basically known as co-op, on every book that's sold, and sometimes not even on books that sell, just for having the books. And then you're now getting charged for returns, in addition to the fact that it is a return. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no there's no
Yeah.
room. So yeah, the gamble is, or the general model is, as bizarre as this sounds, is that you are publishing all these books with hopes that you're going to have a couple of hits that are going to float the rest.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even
Yep.
like the 80-20 rule. It's like the
Right.
95-5 rule. You're hoping that you're going to have Harry Potter, and
Yeah.
that's going to float Scholastic,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Which it
So,
did for
and it did,
years.
and it, and,
Yeah.
and, and it worked.
Yeah, it did. And now they're like, oh my gosh, we need another one. Yeah.
No,
I
I know.
know. I
Yeah.
know.
So the simple answer to that is that, yeah, you do want, there are books that you want to make just because they are beautiful. There are books that you make because you think that they're marketable. And at the end of the day, it's just a very high risk situation with,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just hoping for the best.
Is there any way to reinvent the publishing model so it's not so there isn't such a thin margin on everything? I know it's tradition and publishing changes very slowly, it evolves very slowly, but are there ways to alter this?
Mhm. There are a few things that could happen that could adjust it slightly, but I think it's going to be difficult to it's like, it's, you can never, there's that wonderful line, because I know musical theater, if you want to just talk in musical theater lines, we'll just do that for the rest of the night. Just all the scripts in my head, but there's the wonderful line from Ragtime: you can never go back to where you used to be. So it's never going to go back to what it was, in the same way that so many industries are never going to go backward. The
Mhm.
other thing that very much like in making YouTube shows, Laura, so like anybody can now get a camera and some really good lighting
Sure.
and some decent desperate actors and make a pretty good show.
Mhm.
And publishing, anybody can contact a printer in China. Anybody can get a book made and put it on Amazon, you
Mhm.
know. So there's a lot of constraints that aren't what they used to be, so
Mhm.
that floods the market. You also have a lot of people who are eager to be creators. I raise my hand first there, having done
Mhm.
everything that is like low demand, high volume. I
Mhm.
mean, musical theater in New York. I go to auditions that were just horrendous at 5 a.m, and
Yeah.
you're just surrounded by hundreds of gorgeous people, and you're like, why am I doing this with my life? It's
Yeah.
the same thing with writing. It's the same thing with anything that is artistic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the areas for innovation, you're going to see more experimentation with electronic content. You're going to see a lot more experimentation with electronic content that is what do you call it? That's interactive. I mean, from virtual reality, but also for those of you who are, into apocalyptic teen novels. Did you ever read The Feed?
Yes.
Or didn't? Oh my God. So that is one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. Incidentally, for anybody who loves audiobooks, that actor is amazing.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling, I mean, that's going to happen soon. We're all going to have chips in our head, and we'll be inside the books. We'll be interacting with the wild things. We'll be, playing, in these different worlds that Dr. Seuss has made, or that Mo Willems has made, or whoever. I feel like that's what's going to happen. But I feel like, and in the other area, in terms of print books, and I think this isn't limited to print books, but just about to any physical commodity right now, because of inflation and because of everything else, we're getting in touch with the real price of making things. So picture book, that you're going to have to just increase the retail prices.
Yep.
Like it's just not possible. I was talking to somebody and they were like, "Oh, you ought to do this as a paperback." I'm just like, you can't do this paperback first, because you have to be able to retail at $17 or $18.99. You have to, just to cover the Illustrator Advance.
And you have to get it into libraries, and they're not going to take a paperback, especially with a picture book.
There's that too.
Yep.
So maybe the answer to it is a bit dire, but I think that there is some room for innovation, but I don't think it's going to be in the physical product. You can only get paper to be so cheap. You can only get a boat across the ocean so cheaply.
Yeah.
I think that there's just going to have to be an adjustment of expectation from everyone. Yeah. And that's from the retailer to the creator.
Yeah. I agree. Wow. All right, we'll see.
Someone mentioned they wanted to know the fifth core value.
Yes.
I feel like, did you guys, I feel like I'm talking to you, but I recognize there's a whole bunch of people.
There's a lot of people out there. Yeah.
Outside. There's that wonderful line though from Dead Poet Society. So at the beginning of Dead Poet Society, they talk about, the core values of this establishment. And then the kids go into the classroom or into one of the dorm rooms and they list their values, and one of them's excrement. I mean, they really go for it. At any rate, the fifth core value of Starry Forest is efficiency. And I define that as clarity of purpose and the perfection of process. Excellent. And again, I think so much of what we do is in reaction to what we don't like. And I think working in the corporate world and seeing how much waste there was in emails, in systems, in spreadsheets, no one needs to do that twice. Yeah. Yes. So to that point, we are ruthless about getting down to the most efficient way of doing things. But there's a great line, again, from 7 Habits, that you be efficient with things, you be effective with people. So you don't rush people ever. You don't rush relationships, but you do anything that is not animate. You do need to find the fastest way from A to Z. Yes.
Well, and I have learned, partnering with my husband for 32 years, we have different ways of approaching the creative process of building the business. And he's the idea guy, and I'm the person who starts doing it. Yeah. But if I latch onto the idea too soon, I waste my time, because the idea is going to change. So he's got to sit with it until it's the right idea. And so I've had to learn that. And I think when you're working with a team of anybody, sort of understanding each person's thought process and how they work through problems, you have to honor that. So everybody's working at their best level. And someone like me, it means I have to be patient, because as soon as he says something, I want to start doing it. And I've learned, no, I can't. Because I'll just have to do it again. So it's interesting. Okay, I know we have a lot of questions I want to get to. Can you tell us briefly before we move on?
Yes.
What makes a great Starry Forest book? Is there anything, or is it whatever just works for you?
Well, what's interesting is that's a very similar question to the first question I was asked in my interview to be an intern. And the person who asked me that question, Laura, was Frances Gilbert.
Oh,
She was my first boss.
Wow.
And I love Frances. She's a gem.
Hmm.
Um, the day she told me she was leaving Sterling was a dark day for me. At any rate, it's really your feeling about it. It has to resonate with you, you know,
Hmm.
in the same way that you're like you have a taste of it. I'm also really into cookies. So you have a taste of a really good cookie, like that cookie is amazing. It has to feel that. I do feel very strongly. I have to be wowed by something
Hmm.
because investing in a book is like buying a car. It's
Hmm.
like that much time and money, and that car better run when you get that car
It
done.
is. Would you be comfortable giving us a ballpark, like for a picture book, to bring a
Yeah,
picture book
yeah.
to
Market.
market,
Yeah. You want me
what
to
it
give you like the
costs a
numbers?
publisher?
Let me break down some of the numbers for you.
I would like the numbers,
That's
yes.
a really useful thing to know. No, it's true. That's a really
Yeah.
useful thing. We should do this again sometime. Let's sit down with a spreadsheet. We'll have a Google sheet, share it on screen. I'll tell you how it works. Okay, so you're looking at about 40K to bring a
Mhm.
book to market. I mean, that's pretty modest picture book.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
You're looking at that's the author advance, illustrator advance. You got your editor's time, you got your designer's time. That's like the bare things you need. And then you got to print it.
Hmm.
Okay. And you got to market it.
Hmm.
Those are the big things that go into it. But like 40K,
Yeah.
you gotta plan on at least that. And like
Yeah.
it depends on how big your illustrator is too. Because
Hmm.
illustrator advances can really
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
whoa, like the range is very, very far.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I feel like I shudder. I say, well, let's talk numbers. I'm like, I shudder to like get into different author advances and whatnot, because then what is bound to happen is on this conversation is someone's going to feel like they got a bad deal,
Yeah. You
and
don't want to
someone's
do
going to feel they got a
that.
good deal, and like neither's true, because in some ways there's each project is its own.
Sure.
Each project,
Absolutely.
like one thing that I was taught early in publishing is that each book is its own business. Each
Hmm.
book gets a P&L, just like a company has a P&L. Each book
Right.
has a P&L.
Right. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's dangerous to get too specific on that. But I would say like 40K seems like a
Hmm.
decent number.
Yeah.
Also, it depends on how many books you're going to print. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, yeah,
I think it's important for authors and illustrators to know that, especially when they're, just starting out, because your manuscript, your idea has to be it has to warrant that
yeah,
investment,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
And it's
and
also it's not. I'm sorry, Laura. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It's not just that.
Mm-hmm.
It is the opportunity cost of putting that money on a different book.
Ah, yeah.
So it's like going out on a date. I could go out on a date with this guy or girl, whatever, whatever you're into, or other, or
Yeah.
other. I was like, I can go out on a date with this person. I can go out on a date with this person, or but that's like 3 or 4 hours that I
Hmm.
could have spent with somebody else. That I
Yeah.
could have been playing with my dog. That I could have been baking cookies. It's not just that. It's the
Yes.
opportunity. By doing this, I am foreclosing on the option of another book that might be better.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it. Okay. Well, I'm
let me
gonna
tell you what makes a great Starry Forest book.
please.
Okay, so you are what I'm generally looking for is strong one of the various things in no particular order: a strong character, uh, strong language, not like bad language, but like really strong craft in terms of language,
Hmm.
character, language, story, humor, sentiment.
Okay.
Any of these things and a combination thereof. Like I would say, like in my own work as a writer or as a composer, like I want to do one of two things. I want it to be funny, or I want it to be beautiful, or it's both.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So I'll show you. Can I share my screen? I'll show you one of our
Yes.
books in progress.
Please
This
do.
book is not. This book is not arrived in the U.S. yet. There, unless you were at ALA and you got books that were shipped directly from the printer at ALA, then there's no way to get this book because it's on a boat somewhere in the ocean. And I hope it gets here. Otherwise, we're gonna have some real problems. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna show you one of our picture books that's coming out in August. This is Cadence and Kittenfish. So this is the story of a kitten, and I think you actually had this on. You kindly put this.
Your editor sent me one spread from this. Yeah, it was on the slide.
So this is a story of a mermaid who wants a kitten, and that obviously is not a good idea. So I thought the idea was really cute. And I think the idea, what sold me on it though, was the ending, at least as far as the text. But the art, I feel like, is a really good example of what makes a Starry Forest book. This art is beautiful. I mean, I recognize I'm talking about my own book, but like this art is beautiful. It's got a wonderful palette. It's got wonderful details in it. I don't like anything that's generic or general. There's a wonderful line that's portrayed. It's put in acting, but it also applies to other artistic things as well. The more specific it is to you, the more universal it will be to everyone else. So the more specific you make your character, the more specific you make your joke, the more specific you make your text, the more it's going to resonate. It's like a really great instrument, like a violin or like a cymbal. These are thin wires. These are fine-tuned things, and that's what makes them sing. If you have a really thick cord of horsehair, you're not going to get that sound out of various violin. It's just not going to happen. And so you get like really fine details in the art. Then you have the artist really pouring their craft into it. So like, just look at her hair.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like throwing some fun things in her hair too. And like, who even chooses that color hair for a mermaid? You know?
I love the kitten's expression and the way the kitten's leaning over. They're making eye contact. It's wonderful.
That's a great thing. Yeah, illustrators, characters making eye contact. I had a really great conversation with a designer. We were looking at portfolios, and he says he always looks for characters that are making eye contact because you have to see how characters are interacting. You might have someone who can draw a really amazing wizard, but if that wizard can't interact with I don't know, a witch, then you don't have a story.
Right.
So this is like the cover. And it's something else that we do at Starry Forest. On all of our jacketed picture books, we have a unique jacket to our case. So this is the case art. It's a totally different piece of art.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So this is a picture book that's funny. Okay. So you got, and this is when she first sees the kittens. She goes crazy for it. And this is her talking with her dad about it. Her dad's this, mer farmer. And he gets her, he wants to get her a catfish, and she's like, that's not what I meant. So it's funny and silly and all that kind of stuff. But then like it's kind of heartbreaking because she realizes it's not going to work with this kitty. And she brings him back to shore. She's totally despondent about this. And she discovers there's another little pet, little kitten fish, if you will. That's going to be a good fit for her. And so it's really sweet.
I saw that planted in the previous illustration. I love illustrators that do that. They're kind of give you a clue as to what's coming. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
And so we meet this little character, and then they end up all kind of curled up here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's a really good example of a Starry Forest book. I would look at, I don't have it open, but the book that Valerie did, Greek Myths, Goddesses, and Gardens. Both in terms of art, but also if we wanted, so this is, I was focusing more on art in this one, but for text, what she did with those myths and the attention to detail and making sure that it was relevant for a modern audience. And how do I talk about a mother and daughter relationship in Persephone and Demeter? I mean, she put her soul in that. And you can tell, you read it and you think, wow, this is really moving, but simple and clear, and it's really well paced, So
nice.
Yeah, those are good examples, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. So assuming this book makes it to the US, when can we expect to find it in the stores?
So the pub date for Cadence and Kittenfish, and also for the end, I'll show you another book that's really clever. It's the pub date is August 30th.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing it. I recommend. I know this is a bit of like, follow us on social media. Everybody tells you to do that, but really do, because like if you want to understand what our aesthetic is and what we care about, you'll see it in our posts.
Absolutely.
So I'd say follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and then you'll see like all the books that are coming out and whatnot. You'll also be able to see some videos from ALA and what was being presented there.
Excellent. That's exciting. So can you stay a few more minutes?
I can.
So we can get some questions in here.
If you'll just bear with me. I know this is
Sure.
a really ridiculous thing to say, but I'm visiting my mom, and my mom has injured herself. So if I do need to go assist, that may happen.
Okay, absolutely. Just let us know.
So let me just check. Let me just see. That's a ridiculous thing to do on a Zoom call with like 100 people. I need to see how my mom's doing.
That's okay.
Okay, 1 second.
While you do that, I will chat with our people.
She may be just fine.
So, Susan says, you are a good son. You are.
Okay. Oh, it's kind of you to say. But,
yes.
She's the one who's tolerating my dog. So we'll see. I think it all comes out in the wash.
So let us know in the chat box how you're enjoying this conversation. I know a lot of you have already put some really nice comments. Yes, it has been a very inspiring. So ALA, good question. American Library Association Convention happens twice a year, usually in the summer and the winter. In the winter, one is when they announce the Caldecott and Newbery and all those big awards. There's a bunch of awards that they announce.
I want one of those awards. So bad.
And then the summer one is when they actually present the award, right? And that you can hear the speeches of the winners. Did you get to go to that?
I would.
Wouldn't that be
I didn't
nice?
get to do. I was going to say something foul. I didn't get to do much. I was basically just handing out tote bags and getting people to come to our signings and whatnot.
Yeah, because all the publishers have booths, and basically you're showcasing your books for the libraries so that they will carry them. So it's an important convention, especially for children's books.
I see a whole bunch of questions coming in. Am I supposed to answer these now?
No, I'm going to look at they're just giving comments. I asked them to comment on how they are loving this conversation. So let me get a few questions from the Q&A. Is your mother okay? First of all,
She's fine. She made her way to bed. She gave up on me. What are you gonna do? It all went longer than I expected. I have a lot to say.
Yes. So this is an interesting question from Sandy. If financial compensation isn't important, would you want to know that from a writer submitting to your company? So in their query letter, do you want them to say, money's not really important to me?
No, well, I wouldn't do it for two reasons. One is although it may be true and admirable, although not necessarily admirable, it's just as admirable to want a lot of money. I think that people demonize the desire to make wealth, but just don't try to do it in publishing. But in terms of making a submission, no, don't say that, because it sounds like you're not valuing your craft. I'm not saying to like ask for the moon, but like at the same time, like, you're a writer, you deserve to get paid.
Yes, I agree. Okay. This is a great question from Natasha. How do you preserve what you love in what you write when there are gatekeepers and editors who have the free will to change what you've written?
Well, that's a bit of a what if we reframed that question a little bit? Okay. There are things that a creator, and I speak as a writer, as a composer, as an actor, like, and I know what it's like to go into a room and say, I don't like it that way, do it this way. And I will say the most rewarding experience for me has been to say, how can I take that in? How can I take that in? How can I take that in? I did a workshop one time where I was singing excerpts from Little Shop of Horrors all afternoon. I did the same excerpt over and over and over, all these different directors. And they're like, try it this way, try it this way, try it that way. And I was just like, I was just a puppet. Like all day, I was just like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I had someone come up to me afterward, and she said, I loved watching how you took these notes. It's like the whole afternoon, just the whole performance just kept evolving and evolving and evolving and evolving. And the answer to your question is find collaborators you trust.
Yeah.
Because if you trust them, you'll give it. How can I help? How can I give? All right, fine, sure. Maybe the character doesn't need to be that. Maybe the character needs to have red hair. Sure. Okay, maybe it's not a mermaid, whatever. But you have to find people you trust. Because if you don't trust them, you won't do that. And then it's not going to be fun for anybody.
Right. Yes. And it depends what kind of publisher you're working with too. If you're doing work for hire for like
Yeah.
a book packager,
Yeah.
they have more sort of control over the final product because you're getting a flat fee and maybe they have a series that has to fit a certain
Yeah.
format.
Well,
But
yeah, you have to know you have to know who your audience is. I mean,
yes.
like we've got a series, we've got a lot of series. So like if someone was writing a title for Baby's Big World and they send me something that's like all poetic and rhyming and stuff, I'm like, well, that's not the series. It's like even going to an illustrator and I said, this is the style, because like you have illustrators who work in a style. So you don't just work with that one illustrator. You can have like 4 illustrators working on a series because they can all do the same thing. Someone comes in and like, let's say like none of the characters have hair in the series for some bizarre reason. And someone like sends in all this art and everybody has these big, poofy hair. Like that's not the series.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. That's a different thing than if someone's like writing the story, like, no, I really want this story to be about a cat. And you told me to make it about a gerbil. Find a different publisher.
Yeah. Well, that is ultimately you have control over that. As the author,
Yeah.
if it's your words, you have you can withdraw the contract. You could say this isn't working if you want. Now that's a hard thing to do. I understand.
Well, you're gonna want to check your contract language.
Yeah,
And all
you're
that
gonna
kind of
want to check
stuff. Like you don't want to get into a
legal issue.
you just don't want to get into a situation. I think that the long story short is just work with people you trust.
Yeah.
And like honest, and like look what else they've done. Like you work with a really great editor. You work with Frances Gilbert. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Don't tell her how to make a children's book. She knows
Uh-huh.
what she's doing. Meredith Mundy at Abrams, like, don't tell her how to do it. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And their job really is to help you create a better book, ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if you don't like the way they do it, then publish it yourself. You want to buy a car? Go ahead.
There's that option. Yes. Do you see too many of any one kind of book, whatever the topic may be? Do you get lots of submissions on, I don't know, kindness, for example, that start to look because it's, sort of in the zeitgeist right now? And
Things that certainly happens, unicorns have always been popular, but like there was a time when unicorns weren't unicorns. And then like about 8 years ago, somewhere in there, like everyone went nuts for unicorns. And then at that point, it was like, all right, there's too many unicorn books. And now you need to kind of step your foot off the gas or take your foot off the gas.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I mean, I used to have a thing that if a friend asked me and said they wrote a children's book and asked me to look at it, I would just say yes because it was a friend or a friend or a friend. I stopped doing that because I feel like so many people think they can write a children's book. And you guys know, the story about Dr. Seuss. I'm talking a lot here, Laura. Am I talking too much?
No, you're doing good. You're doing great. Yes, the story of Dr. Seuss.
Okay, so Dr. Seuss is at a cocktail party. You know the story? Everybody's heard this story.
The cocktail party, I don't know if I know that.
I'm not sure he was at a cocktail party, but it sounds better if he was. Dr. Seuss is at a cocktail party, and the brain surgeon comes up to him and says, "Hey, you're that guy who writes children's books." And he says, "Yes, I am." And he says, "What do you?" And he says, "What do you do?" He says, "I'm a brain surgeon." He said, "Really?" Oh. And the brain surgeon says, "I was thinking of writing a children's book." And Dr. Seuss says, "I was thinking of doing some brain surgery."
I love that.
So what I was going to say is that at this point, if someone says, "I wrote a book, will you look at it?"
Oh God, yeah.
My thought is 2 things. 1, go out and read 500 children's books. And when you read 500 and you feel like yours makes sense within that world, then I'll read it. 1. And there was a second thought, but I think that one was so important that I kind of blew the other one out. Yeah, just so
probably get a critique group or something like that.
Well, I think just having a sense of what is out there, and also then the idea. This is a line. My favorite play. My favorite play is a comedy by Noel Coward called what's the name of my favorite play? It's something laughter, present laughter. Have you heard this play?
No.
So in the audiobook world, okay, there's an amazing theater company, and I wish I'd started this myself. It's called LA Theater Works, and they produce audio recordings of every play you can possibly imagine. And their recording of Present Laughter is one of my favorite things I've ever listened to in my life. And in the play, the main character is this famous actor. He's like laying into this young playwright. He says, you go write 100 plays and you get one produced by a local community theater, you'll be damn lucky. And yeah, I'm not saying I don't want anyone to feel discouraged, but like that idea of like, I have read every picture book published in the last 5 years, and I have written 100 manuscripts. It's like, well, then I think you have deserved the right to be taken seriously. You know?
Yeah. Well, getting back to that $40,000 the publisher is going to spend to bring your book to market, you need to earn that. And that is not necessarily the first idea that comes to your head that's going to earn that.
But even aside from that, like there's plenty of books that I respect that I'll never be able to publish. I'm just like, wow, that's beautiful or well crafted or well put together. Or like I've talked with the author, I'm like, what a lovely person. You know, I don't think I can be successful with this, but I, wish you great success with it. I just feel like that's just a nice thing to be able to experience. And I feel like if on a very small scale, the author's desire could be, I'm going to give the publisher a nice experience in reading this, in the same way that the actor thinks, regardless of whether I get the part, I'm going to give this casting director, producer, pianist a wonderful moment in a day filled with nonsense. That's a nice gift to give.
Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it, and you will stand out. Even if they don't end up publishing you, like you said, you'll make that connection. And it could pay off down the road somehow.
All these small things that have to do with human relationship, in the same way that when I was an intern, the publisher at Sterling knew my name, wanted my opinion. I will remember that till the day I die. Whereas like this VP and that VP, like I could have been dirt on their shoes. Like I wouldn't do anything for them. I would drive very far for that publisher. I was like, what do you need? What do you need? You treated me with respect, And I think it's a sign of respect to a publisher or whatever person you're going to be working with, to know that you have prepared yourself in a way to offer something beautiful. I have made something beautiful. This manuscript is a gift for you. And then I get to say, okay, and then us working on it is a gift to you. And so there's a nice exchange.
Nice. Well, I want to wrap up tonight by asking you, we have a lot of questions sort of asking, what does Starry Forest publish? I know it's board books through chapter books. Can you give us a little more detail? And the submission procedure? I know you have your submission guidelines on the website, but if you have anything to add to that.
Sure. The guidelines should be taken a look at. Is a long day. Please look at our guidelines. That helps. Some very obvious things, like you want to email it to that email address, not to a person's email, or like the info box. Like it's right on the site, submissions@starryforestbooks.com. A couple of recommendations to folks. Board books are very difficult to sell as an advance and royalty thing. I personally would recommend, if you are writing in that, start looking into some different categories to write in. It's very difficult to sell a board book. A lot of publishers, a lot of their board books are created in-house. Unless you're a board book author and illustrator together, that's a little bit of a different thing. So I would just voice that right away.
Okay.
The retail price of board books right now versus the cost of making them, shipping them, marketing them, there's not much room there. So I would already say we're probably, if you're really passionate about it, do send it to us, but we're very, very selective about board books because the financials don't really make much sense. We're looking in every other category, but what I often tell authors that I talk to is, send me what you're most excited about. Like, don't make me tell you what to send me. Like, what you're excited about, what you're passionate about, and what you think there is, what's a unique offer to the market.
Mhm.
Aside from that, I would just bear in mind that in terms of response time, there's a lot of submissions. It takes time to get back to people. We only respond if we're interested. It's
Yeah.
just otherwise it would be a full-time job.
Mhm.
And I used to have that job as an intern. I actually bought a nice basket for my desk for the slush because I didn't want to just look at it every day. I bought this
Right.
beautiful basket it could all sit in.
Yes. I had that job too way back, so I know. And that's when everybody sent stuff in, through the post office, through
Yeah,
hard copy.
yeah,
So we didn't have nearly as many as you have to deal with via email.
electronically,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
What is sort of the upper age range of the books you publish? And I know that that may change, but right
Yeah.
now,
We're looking at everything. I mean, we haven't yet published middle grade or YA, but I would say that if we were to explore that, it would probably be middle grade
okay.
fiction. But I'd say that the one of the areas I think a lot of people could start exploring more as authors, it's a harder, it's a harder work. It's harder work, but there's more opportunity. Is a little bit higher age nonfiction.
Hmm.
Everybody goes for board books because it's little text. It feels like a very low hurdle. Then right after that, people go for picture books, and like things that are very familiar to them and easy,
Mhm.
like highly sentimental, mother-child, things like that.
Mhm.
And then more adventurous people get into some really clever picture books, which I just want to show this before like everybody leaves. This
Yes.
I'm jazzed about this picture book. So this is The End, and it's a picture book about endings, middles, and beginnings, and the fact that everything has an ending and a middle and beginning
Huh.
as this conversation comes to the end of
Mhm.
its time. And it's framed around this brilliant idea. It's like the end of the school year, the beginning of summer break.
Mhm.
The end of summer break ends up being the beginning of the school year, and you have this lovely relationship with this girl and her cat that kind of changes over the story. So can I show you the last couple of spreads?
Yes,
And then I'll
absolutely.
shut up. Okay. Okay. So now the end. So they've had this wonderful summer break together, and we see the end of one thing is the beginning of something else. So the end of all this time with her kitty is the beginning of school and possibly this friendship.
Mhm.
And the beginning of one thing is the end of another. And that's okay.
Mhm.
And then we end with the beginning of what? That's up to you.
Ah, I like
And
it.
so I leave with that message, or I released it. I'll stay on here as long as you want, but the idea of like what your career as a writer is really up to you.
Mhm.
But to the extent that you can let go of your expectations of it in terms of validation or financial compensation and focus on why your soul is here.
Hmm.
And maybe it's to tell a children's book, or maybe it's to do something else. I don't know.
Mhm.
But that's the thing to focus on. Why am I here? And what makes me happy to give? And if you do those two things, whether you're writing a book or baking cookies, you're going to make something really beautiful.
Awesome. I think that's a wonderful place to end the conversation.
Well, all right.
This is terrific. Thank you, Robert. This was
Thank you.
just so wonderful. We all just got so much out of it, and I appreciate your time very much. And I appreciate all the beauty you are putting out into the world through
Thank
your
you very
work
much. Thank
very
you.
much.
Well, Laura, thanks for
Right.
being so generous and letting me talk so much.
Sure. Yeah, we could have gone hours more. I know people would have stuck around, but we have.
Another time. Another time. This cigarette's dead.
Yes, yes. Okay.
All right, take care, Laura.
All right, you too. Bye, everybody. We'll
I
see you
know.
next time. Have a great evening. Thanks.